Good evening and welcome to our January 21st, 2026 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. Paper copies of the agenda are available for those here in person, and the full packet is available on our website. Reviewing our agenda, we'll first consider our consent agenda. There are 5 items on that agenda. After our consent agenda, we'll move to general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we apply certain rules regarding public comments. We'll do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. These are the rules. Number 1, each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. 2, individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. 3, all comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission. And 4, we reserve the right to mute, remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. We'll invite you to give your full name and address for our meeting minutes and address your comments to the Commission. While this is not required, it does provide us context on the item and can assist if we need to respond later. Please also know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value your input. We don't usually respond to general public comments on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we'll try and get specific questions answered. After that, we'll move to our regular agenda. There are 2 items on the regular agenda. The first item tonight is a review of the TRC review and consultation, and the second item is a legislative update from Little Government Relations. The first item is an action item, so we'll hear from staff, and then in this case, Bert Nash, followed by questions from the Commission, and then we'll open the item up for public comment relative to the item. Once public comment is closed, we'll bring the item back to the Commission for further discussion and a vote. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. Our first order of business, Commissioners, is to commence an election of officers. And so we'll start with nominations for chair for 2026.
Well, I would like to nominate Vice Chair Reed to be chair. She's interested.
Second.
I'll accept that nomination. Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Any other nominations for chair? Nominations are closed. All those in favor of appointing Commissioner Reed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Commissioner Reed. Would you like to take the duties of vice chair on for nominations?
Sure. We will open the floor to commissioners, any commissioners who would like to make a nomination for vice chair for the term of 2026.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Willie for vice chair.
Commissioner Kelly, second.
Moved and seconded. Commissioner Willie, do you accept that nomination?
I would accept. Are there others that want that?
Yes. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that. Moved and seconded. All those in favor of Commissioner Willie being vice chair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, and with that, I believe we will do a bit of musical chairs, if you will, a switcheroo. I'll open the floor and ask, do any other commissioners wish to relocate their seats? Or I'm looking at Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Dorsey specifically, or would you like to stay where you're currently seated? We have the opportunity to choose differently. Okay.
You said it was musical. Who's providing the music?
Sorry. Oh, you're right.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah, thank you.
Jokes or no?
So we can leave my Oh, thank you. Don't want to confuse anybody who might be watching. All right. Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, everybody, for bearing with us through that little transition. We will move on to the next agenda item. And for this evening, before our consent agenda, we actually have a proclamation. And I believe Commissioner Anderson is ready to read that, so I'll turn it over.
Okay, thank you. Survivors of trafficking are among the most vulnerable of individuals, and we must work together to address the root causes as well as create sustainable recovery options for those who have survived these atrocities. Survivor perspectives are important to solving the root causes, and it is important to include survivors and to keep those survivor-informed perspectives at the forefront of initiatives. Organizations that are taking the lead on human trafficking initiatives in Douglas County, Kansas include, but are not limited to, the following: Lawrence Police Department, the Sexual Trauma and Abuse Care Center, Burton Ash, LMH Health, Lawrence Community Shelter, Children's Advocacy Center of Douglas County, University of Kansas, RADAC, Lawrence School District number 497, Eudora School District number 491, and the Willow Domestic Violence Center. Whereas human trafficking, a modern form of slavery, is one of the largest and fastest growing criminal industries in the world and is based on recruiting, harboring, and transporting people for the purpose of exploitation. And whereas sex trafficking and labor trafficking occur in Kansas, and both adults and children of any gender, socioeconomic status, age, race, sexual orientation, and geographic location can become victimized. And whereas human trafficking includes sexual, verbal, emotional, economic, and physical abuse and exploitation, and all forms of abuse carry long-term, complex trauma implications. And whereas Kansas human trafficking laws define commercial exploitation of children, which does not require a showing of force, fraud, threat, coercion, and references the existing statutory definition of human trafficking and aggravated human trafficking. And whereas the effects of human trafficking reach far beyond its victims, perpetrators, causing disruption in our schools, places of work, and neighborhoods. And now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of January 2026 as Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and urges Douglas County to speak out against sex and labor trafficking and exploitation, to support survivors of these heinous crimes, to encourage community leaders to hold offenders accountable, and to make preventable efforts a priority by hosting events, by creating policies at work, school, and home, and by supporting and participating in programs designed to reduce and eventually eliminate human trafficking as a societal problem. As a community, we will commit to creating and executing a comprehensive, collaborative, and trauma-informed response for the safety and security of human trafficking survivors, adopted this 21st day of January 2026.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. I believe we have representatives from the Willow and from the Care Center, it looks like, who are going to come forward and provide some more information, and then we'll have a signed proclamation for you to take with you. Thank you for being here. And just make sure to press the button so that the microphone light goes to green, and talk into it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, esteemed commission, fellow residents. Good evening. We stand before you today to draw attention to a critical issue hidden within our own community: human trafficking. Awareness is our most potent weapon in this fight, but true awareness begins only when we share a clear baseline understanding of what human trafficking truly is. Effective awareness and prevention efforts require a unified understanding of human trafficking across all city departments, organizations, and residents. Human trafficking is an underreported issue that often occurs in plain sight, with victims rarely coming forward due to fear of trauma. Raising awareness and educating the public on how to identify and report this crime can save lives and help reform and restore freedom to survivors. According to the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000, severe forms involve using force, fraud, or coercion for commercial sex or involuntary labor. Again, this crime is often underreported because it happens secretly, and victims may not come forward due to fear or manipulation or fear of retaliation. A shared understanding and education can help everyone recognize the signs. We urge you to come together and protect the most vulnerable, minoritized people in our community and to help us end human trafficking.
The Willow Domestic Violence Center and the Sexual Trauma and Abuse Care Center are proud to be a part of a growing coalition working to ensure Lawrence remains a safe and welcoming community as we prepare for FIFA World Cup 2026. With an estimated 650,000 visitors expected in the greater Kansas City region, we know that large-scale international events can increase the risk of both labor and sex trafficking. Trafficking often thrives in moments of increased demand for temporary labor and high visitor traffic. Prevention starts with preparedness. That's why our two organizations are partnering to offer free human trafficking awareness trainings for community members. These trainings focus on recognizing potential indicators of trafficking, responding safely, and knowing how and where to report concerns. We are currently developing sessions for healthcare professionals, first responders, hospitality and service industry staff, and others who regularly interact with the public. Trainings will be offered both in person and virtually to make them accessible to as many people as possible. Together, we can ensure Lawrence and Douglas County is prepared, informed, and aligned with our shared values of safety and dignity. For more information about World Cup preparations and our training opportunities, please visit lawrence2026.com. Thank you for your time and your commitment to keeping our community safe.
Thank you all. We appreciate you so much and the work that both organizations do in the community. We have a proclamation to provide to you. Yes, that deserves applause. Thank you all. Well, thank you again for being here and for the work in the community. And I'm excited about the public education and awareness raising campaign that'll come in the next couple of seasons for our community. With that, we will move on to our consent agenda. Commissioners, do any of you wish to pull anything for further questions or discussion? Seeing none, does anybody in the public wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Sarah, just to double check, anybody online with their hands raised? Thank you. All right, commissioners, I would accept a motion for the remaining consent agenda items.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the rest of the consent agenda passes. And for 2.2, first I'll check with commissioners. Do any commissioners have any particular questions that they want to ask?
I had all my questions answered ahead of time.
Okay. Sarah, who do we have that is available to speak on this? Should there be any questions?
Chad Voigt is online if we need him to answer any questions.
Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment and invite you up to let us know what your questions or comments are.
Matthew Herbert. I'm a resident of Douglas County and Commissioner Willie's district. I would just ask that you give some regard to the necessity of the dust control program. I live on a gravel road myself. We're very aware when you move there that you live on a gravel road, that gravel generates dust. And the problem becomes, take my road for instance, it backs up to Baldwin Creek. And in large rain events, becomes Baldwin Creek, which means whatever you put on that road goes into Baldwin Creek. So effectively what we're doing right now is we're spraying chemicals on our roadway that in large rain events become part of our creek system, and on, and you understand where that goes. I think there are very few opportunities to make impactful environmental policy that doesn't really affect anyone negatively. I think this is an opportunity. I don't necessarily believe we need to have a dust control program on county roads. Gravel roads create dust. People like myself who live on gravel roads are aware of that. That doesn't negatively impact my life. I would be much happier if you stopped spraying chemicals on my road. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Would anybody else like to provide public comment on this item? Okay, we will close it and bring it back for any questions or comments that commissioners might have otherwise.
I don't think we routinely spray unless the property owner requests it. Is that correct?
No, they're on county operated gravel roads, and I'm not sure if it's
Oh, okay.
county
I'm
owned
thinking
or if
township.
it's a township road. It is oftentimes put between houses, and Chad could respond a little bit more to that.
Yes, that's correct. On county routes, we have about half of our rock roads that have been stabilized in the past. And so that base stabilization used the same exact product, and it was put deep in the soil. And then we try to just refresh that with a top coat. And so about half of our routes are sprayed every year, full length. And then we have about another 30 residential properties that we've decided to go ahead and spray in front of their properties, so that everyone is treated equally. But then the rest of the road between the houses does not get sprayed. As far as township roads go, that's a user fee program where residents are able to sign up. If the township has not been doing anything, in years past, they have actually done some things like this, but they are not currently doing that. So it's on residents to sign up for that program and provide the dust control that they want in the length that they want. And then there's a final part where sometimes we'll go out and spray township roads if the construction project that we have going on is creating detour traffic on township roads. And we want to control the dust on those for safety. And we often get calls from those landowners requesting that.
And then there are certain times of the year that we don't do dust palliative, correct? Would you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, that's correct. You don't ever want to do it in cool, wet weather because it's really just, it turns pretty slimy and it doesn't bind very well and it tends to run off. We do it in the hotter, drier part of the year, and we do it in June as an initial application. And then throughout the summer, we'll do follow-up applications or first applications on new locations if necessary. But then once we get to about late August into September, we start thinking about no more dust control, just so we don't have those slimy conditions.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. If there are no other questions, I would accept a motion if any commissioner has one.
Well, I appreciate the public comment, and I doing a little research here on what the environmental impacts are of that liquid brine solution that we put on. I think it's balancing, the need. We hear quite a bit about needing things to control dust on our gravel roads. And while that's important, that comes up on almost every planning item that comes to us. And my experience has been any of the chemicals that are put on roads or even the vehicles that are traveling on those roads that can get into the water system. It's a balance between, the environmental impacts and the needs of our transportation system and maintaining those systems. While I appreciate the comments and I recognize the issues, I'm fine with going ahead and moving ahead, and I'm happy to make a motion unless any other commissioner has a question or comment.
have a comment. The experience of folks living on gravel roads can be highly uneven in terms of older homes were built close to roads. Newer homes then are generally at least 80 feet off the center line of the road. And part of it's for that reason, to kind of mitigate some of those things that people would otherwise, be having a negative experience with. Whether you live on the south side of the road or the north side of the road matters. So it's, in the summertime a lot when we've got especially dusty conditions and wind coming from the south. So folks on the north side are often going to be more impacted than folks who live on the south side. But certainly we hear a lot from folks that want that dust control. And we have the opportunity that folks that feel like that impacts their quality of life can opt into that program through their township roads. And folks that don't find that to be an issue also don't. It's always a balance. Everything we do is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I receive a fair amount of requests for dust palliative. And even most recently, I'll just say most recently I had a resident who unfortunately lost a very dear pet because on gravel roads, individuals have a tendency to drive very fast. And due to dust, an individual didn't see her and her pet standing at the mailbox getting mail, and her pet was ran over. And so she's requesting more dust palliative to be put down this time of year, but unfortunately this time of year it can't be put down. And so when we think about providing these different types of tools and resources to residents, I agree it's a balance of understanding what needs to be provided to constituents. I guess my only question would be, are there options in dust palliative? Chad, when we think about, I guess I'm going to say non-chemical, would there be like a non-chemical option? Because I would assume this is like a chemical.
I think
spray?
this would more accurately be described as a compound. It's magnesium chloride, which
Okay.
is a naturally occurring
Okay.
compound. I think it's generated in dry lake beds, like ancient dry lake beds. That's reached the extent of my knowledge of where it comes from. And so what it does is it binds with the lime, materials that are inherent in dust and road rock, and it binds those together. And so it's not a chemical like you would buy off the shelf at a hardware store. It's actually just using the sort of mineral reaction to bind those materials. So it's naturally occurring. It does it's a salt essentially. So anything that's salty that runs off into streams is going to have an impact on the environment. And that's no different than all the salt we put on the roads in the winter. So that's one of the inherent factors of operating vehicles. And I think, as far as dust control goes, I think it's the most inert and innocuous product that we could be using.
Thank you.
Move to authorize Douglas County Public Works to solicit bids for dust control chemicals for rock roads and to continue the user fee dust control program for 2026 with the user fee not to exceed $1.65 per linear foot, an administrative fee of $60 per application, and a late fee of $15 per application.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you, commissioners, and thank you for the public comment. With that, our consent agenda is concluded. We'll move on to general public comment. As a reminder, this is a time for an opportunity for members of the public to make comment about items within the jurisdiction of the county commission, but that are not on today's agenda. Is there anybody in the audience who has general public comment? Okay, seeing no in-person takers, any virtual hands, Sarah? All right, we will close general public comment and move on to our regular agenda items, starting with item 4.1, the TRC review and consultation. Sarah?
I'm going to kick this off, commissioners, and turn it over to Bob, and then we have representatives from Burt Nash here to also answer questions. We came before the commission in December 3rd to talk about a request for additional funding for Bert Nash and conversations about this consultation and review. And I just want to say that since those conversations have happened, we've worked really closely with Dr. Watkins and her team, as well as Dr. Margie Balfour, who will move into the panel, to really come up with a scope that we think meets everybody's interests. You know, this is really a consultation. And so I want to stress that this is our intent with this, is that it's a consultation to provide both the county and Bert Nash with additional thoughts and expertise about how we can run these very complex systems that are still pretty new in their evolution in terms of mental health care in America. So I think sometimes it's good to get those perspectives, and that's what our hope and intent is with this process. And I guess I'll turn it over to Bob at this point to kind of walk us briefly through the scope. I do want to just remind commissioners that we've agreed to this scope, and the legal agreement will be between the county and Dr. Balfour, and it is not attached to your packet, but it's very, very close to being done. And so your motion then would be to authorize me to sign that. It is inside my realm of authority to approve based off the dollar amount. But I'll turn it over to you, Bob.
So as Sarah said, we're pleased to report that we've made a lot of progress. We have an agreement. We've identified the consultant. The county and the consultant and Bert Nash have had several meetings and conversations. And so the scope basically looks at 5 things. The first piece is an operational review. The second piece is to look at staffing and leadership. Third is to look at data, KPIs, and reporting, a financial sustainability piece to this consultation. And then the last 2 pieces are taking a look at system integration, so how the TRC fits in with our overall larger crisis response system. And then, you know, partnerships and operational support. We have a lot of customers who come to the TRC. We have a lot of stakeholders in the community that this new resource and this relatively new service provide and support. And so this is an opportunity to bring in some outside expertise with quite a lot of experience, looking not just at crisis centers, but also how crisis centers fit into that continuum of care. And Dr. Margie Balfour is here. I was going to invite her to say hello and introduce herself, and then I think we will stand for questions.
Hi, I'm Dr. Margie Balfour. I'm a psychiatrist based in Tucson, Arizona, and I've been doing emergency and crisis psychiatry for pretty much my whole career, both at large hospitals, and then I ran a crisis center in Tucson, Arizona, where we did a lot of work with system collaboration. I've since done a lot of national work. I was on the expert panel that wrote the SAMHSA national guidelines and model definitions for crisis. And way back in 2019, I think it was involved in consulting with the county in the original, planning for how the crisis system in Douglas County, was going to progress. And so I'm really excited about coming back and seeing all the work that y'all have done, because I mean, to be honest, like Sarah mentioned how complex this work is, and y'all are, further along than most counties. And so, this work is hard and it's complicated. And so, I'm really here to just use what I've seen and, my experience to help y'all work together to, make things sustainable and better.
So in terms of the timeline, we spoke about this at the last time we were with you. There'll be 2 phases to this. The first phase is really already underway in the sense that we've had conversations and we've identified the data that we want to review, and to get that information to the consulting team. Dr. Balfour will pull in some additional help and support as part of this work. But the first phase will really start with a site visit the first week of February, the 4th, 5th, and 6th of February. That will involve a full day with Dr. Balfour matched up with the TRC team. Wanted to say thanks to Ryan Storch and to Kristen Vernon and Rebecca Wall for helping to set up and convene and do all the scheduling that piece of this requires. And then there'll be an opportunity on Wednesday and Friday of that week to meet with first responders, to meet with our police chiefs, to have some conversations with peer specialists who are working throughout our system of care. So it's a site visit, data review, and then out of that, which would be finished by the end of March, there will be kind of some preliminary observations. And the intent is that we would come back to you to share those. And then have Dr. Balfour, Dr. Hernandez, and the MultiPass team have some time to formulate, based on those observations and more interviews, conversations, some more formal recommendations that Burt Nash, Douglas County might want to consider as the TRC continues to iterate, evolve, and grow, and to become one of the best facilities in the country, which is what I think we should be striving for, and I think we are striving for.
Thank you, Bob. and thank you, Dr. Balfour. Thank you for being here this evening with us. I'll open the floor up to other commissioners. Any questions for staff or Dr. Balfour or our partners at Burt Nash this evening?
Excited about the collaboration and the progress we're making. And I don't know if Dr. Watkins wants to address any of that. I'd give you an opportunity if you did want to.
Hi. Yes, certainly. Thank you for asking. We engaged in collaborative conversations about this scope, and I'm really pleased to come here today to indicate that we are supportive, fully supportive, and in alignment with the county administration on the objectives, the scope, the timeline. We are equally impressed with Dr. Balfour and look forward to utilizing her expertise to help inform our future.
Dr. Watkins, while we've got you there,
Yes.
What do you hope to learn? I mean, we have some very specific questions within the contract. What do you hope that you and Burt Nash learn, and what do you hope the county learns from this consultation?
There are many things, and that was the part that I think I was most excited to be a participant in, was developing those questions in collaboration with the county administration. We thought a lot about all of the things that would be important for us to know across many different arenas. So things like finance and staffing and utilization of services, and just the way that our system is working within itself and collaborating with other aspects of the crisis continuum. So I think all of those things, I can't pinpoint one thing that I would hope to learn more about or receive feedback about more than other things. But I think the collection of all of those questions are important things for all of us moving forward.
Being that the final report should come back to the Board of County Commission May of 2026, do you anticipate that some of these learnings should be able to inform the budget conversations that we're going to move into this summer for the 2027 budget conversations, so that the work that you will do with staff moving into that 2027 budget conversation will support you in those collaborative conversations?
Most certainly. And I know that was identified in the staff report too, that the primary intention of this consultation is to inform 2027 budget discussions and future decisions about operations. And I think that's very important for both of us. But I want to point out the last line on that agreement, which is something that I felt pretty strongly about including. And we talked back and forth about that. And that is related to what has been tied to this consultation, which is our 2026 supplemental funding request. And so while I think it's very important to have this information to inform those decisions for 2027, it is my primary responsibility and duty to ensure that we can make it through 2026 and continue to provide these essential services for the duration of 2026. So I don't want that to get lost in the mix here, that our repeated request was related to funding that we believe is essential for us to be able to continue to provide those essential services for our community for 2026.
Thank you. And I do note that on the very last page, funding access, after phase one is complete, Burt Nash can approach the Board of County Commission for consideration of operating funds for the 2026 TRC budget. So Sarah, can you clarify? Those are two separate, those would be two separate conversations, correct? So the very last statement here would be a part of the 2026 TRC budget, but any 2027 conversations would be a completely separate conversation.
Correct. And those will happen in July.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay. So then after phase one is complete, prior to the May final report, Burt Nash will come back to the board sometime March approximately, maybe,
I would just,
after phase one?
after phase one is complete, they have an opportunity to reapproach the board.
Okay.
That was my understanding of your direction at the December 3rd meeting.
Okay. So those are two completely separate
Yes.
discussions.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I'd like to hear from Bob or Sarah or somebody on the county side to ask Burt Nash what they hoped they would learn and what they hope the county would learn. I want to offer the same question to staff.
I think this is a real opportunity for a couple of reasons. First is the TRC has been operating, and it's been operating really well for the first 2.5 years. There also we have bumped into things and discovered things that challenge the assumptions that we had when we went into this project. Some of those things are financial, some of those things are operational. We're learning some of the things that are challenging. Staffing and workforce are challenging. So I think this is an opportunity to be able to solicit maybe some outside ideas about how other facilities like this have addressed those challenges. I think that there's some opportunity to learn how a crisis center such as this can maximize the leveraging of CCBHC funds and revenues. And I think there's always tremendous benefit that can come from genuine solution, helpful, focused technical assistance. I think throughout this process, Douglas County and our partners have benefited tremendously from, we've had technical assistance in the justice space. We've had a lot of opportunity for technical consultation and assistance in the crisis response space. There's just a lot you can learn by not staying siloed in what you're doing at this moment with the resources and the people that you have. I think sometimes outside consultation can help you to imagine what else might be possible and to ask what if and why not questions.
Thanks.
Dr. Balfour, do you have access to people in your group or that you can consult with regarding finance issues and the complex CCBHC formula?
Yes, I'm actually going to bring on as a subcontractor a colleague of mine. Her name's Dr. Crystal Hernandez. She's a psychologist and an MBA, and she's done extensive work in Oklahoma, which, like Kansas, was one of the first states to adopt the CCBHC model. So, being an early adopter is kind of a blessing and a curse, right? So, so she really has a lot of expertise in digging into like the really nitty-gritty details of all the intricacies of CCBHC financing. So between the two of us, and then Bob has offered to connect me with some people at the state so I can better understand how the state is seeing things. And then I just know a lot of people, so if something specific comes up, I've got people that I can ask to pick their brain.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, seeing no other questions for now, we'll go ahead and open this item up for public comment. Thank you, Dr. Watkins. Appreciate you coming up. Is there anybody here in the audience that would like to provide public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Any virtual hands, Sarah? Okay, we will close public comment and bring this back for comments and motions from the commission. I will just share that I'm excited about what we will learn from this and really enjoyed reading this summary of what to expect and appreciate, in my perspective, it's real plain language, straightforward, and a comprehensive explanation of what our two organizations and the community at large should expect from this process. And I'm eager for how the process will have a positive impact on the practitioners in particular and our partners at Burt Nash, and the ability to have that additional perspective and sort of historical expertise from different types of communities that have faced both similar and different challenges. And, to Bob's point, I have some real tangible, graspable solutions that have worked well other places that we can apply here or adapt here. So I'm eager for the report back to us, but I'm mostly hopeful that it feels like a really healthy and helpful process to Burt Nash and to the county for how we think about the next iteration of this very important service. And I think a little perspective never hurt anybody. And so I really appreciate Dr. Balfour's, broad expertise and network of contacts and the perspective that is going to offer us, and figure out what applies and what doesn't, and how to adapt so that we can continue to strengthen what I think is a really strong foundation that we've built, but that we know we have to continue to shore up and assess along the way. So I'm grateful to read this, excited about the outcomes, and just appreciate the collaborative spirit.
Microphone. I just want to say thank you. I know many expressed that it was challenging at times, and I think it stretched a lot of individuals and organizations to work through many iterations. And I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you that everyone came to the table and worked through collaboration and trust and has come out on the other side with what I think is a really good product and is a really good scope that is evaluative and really teases out some really good questions, and what I hope will, for all parties, bring forth some really good learnings that can allow everyone on the other side to really identify next steps and where everyone would like to go together and walk the walk together and really identify what 2027 is going to look like. So I'm going to say it again. I just want to say thank you.
I have a question for Sarah. Do you have any contingency built into that 98.9 number?
We said it as a not to exceed scope. If we needed to exceed that, we'd have to come back to you.
Okay, but something may come up and it may
Sure. And then
require.
we'd come back to the commission and revise the scope and the authorization.
Okay.
I would make a motion if the chair is ready. I move to authorize the county administrator to execute a contract with Multipass Consulting to conduct an outside financial and operational review of the Treatment and Recovery Center based on the attached scope of work and timeline at a cost not to exceed $98,900.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Burt Nash, for being here. We'll see you again soon. And with that, we will, and thank you, Dr. Balfour. We really appreciate your time and are excited to see you. Don't forget to pack your coat.
Will do.
All right, with that, we will move on to regular agenda item 4.2, a legislative update from Little Government Relations. And we've got Stuart Little here. Just turning it over to Stuart. Is that right, Sarah?
I'm just going to turn it over to Stuart. I think Jake's going to get his PowerPoint up and running.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations, Madam Chair. We are going to give you the first update of the legislative session. We've been sending reports, and we're kind of almost at the end of the second week. And I'll give you an overview of some of the very specific big picture, but also some of the things that we've had conversations about. The session is moving quickly as we anticipated. The schedule has them leaving by March 27th, done with the regular session, come back in early April and be done. That's probably 45 days, 30 to 45 days shorter than we've had before. So we're counting 90. We have a 90-day session, and we're counting every day instead of counting every workday and getting a 90-day session done. So what that means is there's been a tremendous amount of bills introduced again this year. Of course, we're in the second half of the biennium, so everything from last year is still alive. So we are still sorting through bills. Committees are just starting to have hearings. There were a few at the end of last week, but not very many. And one thing that's of significance is that last year we talked about how the control over the budget had shifted from the governor's office to the legislature, and they began to have their own budget hearings and put together their own budget, which led eventually in the long run, a lot of the governor's recommendations last year being rejected, and about, I think, $250–300 million in budget cuts coming out of the budget from state general fund. The intent expressed by leadership is to do that same thing again this year and cut another $200 million out of the budget. I don't know where that will come from, but waste, fraud, and abuse have been described. So they've begun that process. They're having budget hearings now. So for the various service entities that you care about, the behavioral health, corrections, those kinds of things, those topics are going through the committee process now and having budget hearings. And we will kind of a couple of the issues that we have talked about for a long time and kind of update briefly where they are. The property tax lid question that's been around with a renewed energy for a few years is still in play. We had a hearing on a constitutional amendment. And just a refresher, the legislature has gone back and forth with a small number, a small majority of people who want a constitutional amendment, and another majority who would live with a statutory change in terms of like capping appraised value growth or something. But they've never come together on something that they could pass, number one, and number two, that they could pass that would be able to override a governor's veto. So the property tax reductions that they did last year, they're looking to do more. The property tax reduction they did last year, I believe the only one was eliminating the 1.5 mils for the statewide levy that was for, I mean, it's real money, but it wasn't what I think people expected in property tax reform. So I'm not sure they're going to have the capacity to push through a constitutional amendment. I'm not sure. I think they could pass a statutory cap that would be flexible and subject to discussion every year. If you're going to have one, that's obviously the way to go. But I don't know that there's agreement. There's enough people that part of this conversation now is as a campaign issue, frankly. It's an even numbered year, and everybody in the House of Representatives is facing re-election, and we got a governor's race going along. So that factors into this. So I don't feel like there's still enough that to pass any one thing or the other. And there's kind of an expectation from some folks that we're going to wait till next year and see who the governor is, and that will change the conversation. There's been nothing. We had spent a great deal of time kind of talking, I think, with the big 5 counties in the same way. The treasurer's motor vehicle fee bill, that bill still has not moved up forward to get a hearing. There's been almost no conversation about it among the legislature, and we've talked about it, and when we local government folks are getting together, but it's still kind of tied up in committee. Nothing's going on there. The redistricting issue that came up in the fall averted a special session. I think the last time I was here, I said they're going to bring it up again. The House failed by 10+ votes to have the ability to call the legislature back, which meant that they would fail to override a governor's veto if they tried to do a redistricting map. And so that's gone off the table, and that won't be anything that will take any more of their time. There's been no conversation about Capers reform. The Tier 3 issue continues, and particularly in border parts of the state, there's lots of concern about that, but the price tag's still high, and I don't know that that's been carried forward very strongly. I would note, underlying this K-12 education funding, they're rewriting the school finance formula. They're supposed to have a new formula next year, and there's been a lot of work put into that. That has an impact on everything from, the local levy and all those kinds of issues. But they don't have anything done yet. When they come back in 2027, they're supposed to proceed with a new formula. It's interesting to note, though, that they did introduce a bill a couple of days ago that extended that to 2028. So we may begin the process of pushing it out, because writing a school finance formula is very hard. This is just a brief summary of the constitutional amendment bill that has a 3% annual cap on an increased appraised valuation. It had a variety of folks coming in to testify. Interestingly, a lot of different positions between agricultural, realtor interests, those kinds of issues in terms of where does the tax burden shift between capping that and ag land values and those kinds of issues. So lots of issues in the mix. It passed out of the committee this morning, and it will very likely be able to get 21 votes in the Senate, and it will get passed over to the House. And the House has not, I don't even think they've taken a constitutional amendment onto the floor in the recent future. So it will give everybody a chance in one chamber to vote on a constitutional amendment, and it doesn't have the votes to pass in the House. That's one issue. A couple of other things. There's not a lot of kind of new stuff coming out, but I'll just mention a couple of them here that are on the list. There's a bill that's beginning to make its way that in terms of the transit guest tax, that is reducing the number of rooms that would be eligible for that. And this is, I think, directly related to World Cup, and expanding that issue. Frankly, that's kind of been the only conversation about World Cup that's taken place in Topeka so far. I think they got the Appropriations Committee got a briefing the first week, but it was brief, and nothing else has come up in terms of additional funding or those kinds of things. There's an annexation bill that came up last year that we're hearing is going to be drugged back up, and it has to do with annexation of, you had to do a maximum. I've incorrectly misspelled the word and put the wrong amount, but it's a 20-acre maximum or minimum for annexation. There's another issue that strange bill, but had a hearing today. It's sitting in committee. It's Senate Bill 319. If your home sells for less than 97% of the appraised value, the county is required to give you a rebate of the taxes in that 3% gap if it's 97%. Interesting hearing this morning. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but it gives you some idea of the range of things we're talking about. Another issue I'd throw in here real quickly. I'm sorry.
Naturally, the state's also planning to, compensate the counties for the additional burden of that work, right?
That did not come up in the hearing this morning. I would note one other issue that is, we've done kind of some of these kind of bills for a couple. There is a bill that had a hearing today that allows the use of expired naloxone. We throw millions of doses of naloxone away in this country, and because I think they all have 2, maybe 3-year manufacturers, and they last for 10 years or more. And so there's a bill that had a hearing. It'll come out of committee. There's lots of bipartisan support for it that, we're not going to it's not going to change what a pharmacist can do, but it's actually connected to the Good Samaritan law that we passed a year ago, that that liability protection goes as well if you happen to use expired naloxone. And hopefully that gets a bigger conversation going down the road.
Would that apply only to citizens, or would that apply to first responders also?
You know, so for the pharmacy folks, you know, they can't, or in a hospital situation, they can't prescribe, you know, they'll lose their license. I don't know the degree to which that impacts emergency medical services. I would assume they're really probably not allowed to use medications that aren't required, but it's a small step forward. I will talk briefly about housing here for a few minutes. This seems to be the year of housing in Kansas. There's a Kansas Housing Action Network, kind of statewide. UCS and Johnson County spend a lot of time pulling things together. The affordable housing tax credit is kind of getting winnowed down over the last year from the legislature, and there's still folks that don't want to keep expanding it because of some long-term revenue implications. There is a package of bills that have been introduced. I believe all of them have been bipartisan with Democrats and Republicans on it. There's been a lot of work done that include eviction reform, payment issues with of renters paying and the source of income for that. There's a baseline property maintenance code, which is not, it's a 14-year-old international code that sets a bare minimum for safety, so folks don't get up, you know, we want to put sprinklers in every room, those kind of things. And then there's also a property verification registry for landlords, and what it is, in an attempt to be easy to use, cost effective, it's going to be tied to the registration at the Secretary of State on that 2-year cycle, and you'll just verify, there'll be a place to be able to verify ownership, because the challenge for evictions or any of these kinds of issues and some of the situations that have arisen in Olathe and in Wichita is either venture capital or foreign investors who own, and you can't even find out who to engage, and that's part of it. And I think there's been a lot of energy and attention focused on that. Hearings are going to start next week, and it's surprising Republican chairs of some committees are backing this legislation, so it has some chance to work its way through. The last thing I would note in terms of housing as well, there's a community land trust here for Habitat for Humanity and the work that they do, and you've probably seen in media some of the work they've been doing in Olathe, in Lenexa, and there's a expansion of interest in making community land trusts available as that grows. And one of the issues that has arisen, and I'm not a tax expert nor an appraisal expert, but county appraisers in at least one county, the complexity of the value of a home where a nonprofit entity owns the land and the person owns the structure. How do you handle the tax on that? And a community land trust, which we have here, deals with that issue. But there are, as those are spreading around the state, various county appraisers need some clarity. So there's a bill that identifies a community land trust as something that an appraiser can include. So this is the most housing legislation I've seen in my entire career working in the legislature. And so it's a lot of, and I know some of your staff and other folks here have been deeply engaged in this as well. That may be all I have. Oh, elections. We have a variety of election bills up. I'll note a couple of them that I don't think are going to go anywhere, but it gives you a bit of a look at kind of what's going on. There's a bill in both chambers that does not allow a local government to use any of their resources, broadly defined, on ballot questions, those kind of things. So it already has in law. You can't use that to advocate for or against an individual running for the legislature or for any office. But now if you had a ballot initiative or something you were voting on here that the public would vote on, it would eliminate the ability of the county to do the way the bills, it doesn't allow, what's the term of art? It doesn't allow, it has to be neutral. And neutral in a discussion about anything is, of course, in the eye of who wants to make it an issue. So, but it does raise some questions about, folks in the legislature, a group of people looking into that issue. The other issue that I would note briefly is that changing local government elections doesn't impact counties, but for cities and school boards, it would move the elections into that even year cycle as well. So you would have literally every race in a city all the way up on the same cycle. So what that means for ballots, what that means for attention, what that means for drop off and voting, all those kinds of things. The issue that's always been our concern in 2015, a group of legislators came in and wanted to move elections to even years and make them partisan for school boards and for all local units of government. And they didn't have the capacity to do that. They didn't have the votes to do that. And so they settled on moving them to fall even years. The same legislator that started that process last year is still in the legislature, and in the hearing on the bill yesterday, he said, we wanted to get every local election partisan, and now's our chance to fix that. So that's hanging out there. I don't know that there are a lot of people that are interested in doing that, but it's kind of where we are, maybe, I would say, in terms of how to handle some of these issues. I think that may be all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. There's still a lot of stuff coming, a lot of stuff that we're still dealing with. So this would be the night you could probably stump me on what does this bill mean, because there's a lot that we're still working through.
Stuart, I have a question about process. I've been working with a couple legislators to get a bill introduced related to the Eudora Library Board. 5 years ago, I guess they passed something that said the library board would be appointed. And since they have mill levy ability, there's thinking those people should be elected. And so Mike Amix and Lance Neely, I think, are co-sponsoring a bill to change basically they used one word wrong. They said appointed instead of elected when they passed the bill. Well, it's been through the revisor group and they've come up with an acceptable language, and I keep looking online to see if it's got a number assigned yet, and I'm wondering what happens after the revisors get done with it.
I will say two things. I will say you have to wait in line like everybody else, because we're all like refreshing when we're waiting for our bill to come out. But also there are the legislature, this is way too nerdy, but the legislature slowed down their budget writing process in the fall because they were going to hire a new vendor to write bills. And so they didn't write bills for about 2 months. And then they decided to abandon that contract with who they had. So then they had to pick up with the old system. So they're behind. And in a time where you're trying to get done in 90 days, you're not going to see some bills in 90 days. But I will check into that with Representative Amix and see what he's hearing as well. Because he, unlike me, can ask the revisors what's going on with the bill.
HB 2230.
I'm sorry, what?
HB 2230, Kratom.
It is, there had been conversation, because our firm is working on the naloxone bill, but also on the Kratom bill, to try to get those two things connected at some point to get a focus on those kinds of issues. And the Kratom bill there is interest in, it's in the House, there's interest in having a hearing on that bill. And I would not be surprised if it doesn't happen because there's a lot of interest. Frankly, there's a lot of interest with a lot of the other things that are going on and appearing now to maybe tuck into that with the various THC Delta stuff that's going on. It's pretty inarticulate, but
Okay, so that's, so,
it's still alive and there is interest in doing something with it.
okay. So when you say interest in doing something with it, there's just,
The chair has said he would like to have a hearing on that, on the
Okay.
bill. So,
all right.
yeah,
So no hearing just yet.
not yet.
Okay, thank you.
I might say that I checked the list of bills on Sunday and there were 50 pages. Today there's 87 pages.
Yeah.
There's a bill that I think had a hearing in the Ag Committee, House Ag Committee, HB 2476. I only heard about it today. I don't know much about it, but it was suggesting protecting ag chemical companies from failure to warn lawsuits for health impacts from their chemicals. And I'm just curious if that's something you could keep an eye on. I
Yes, absolutely.
don't know what happened with it today. I think it was just about 3 hours ago.
Okay, all right. No, thank you. I'll make a note.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, seeing no questions. Thank you, Stuart. This item is for informational purposes only. We appreciate your time and continued work on, working all of those 90 days yourself, I'm sure. We'll open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the chambers who wishes to provide public comment on this agenda item? Seeing no takers, any virtual hands, Sarah? All right, we'll close public comment. Bring this back for any closing comments if any commissioners have them. Okay, with that, we are done with our regular agenda and we will move on to appointments. First, commissioners, I don't believe there's any appointments that are immediately ready for us to make besides we need to address our own appointments as commissioners to boards and commissions, but let me clarify. To start with, are there any openings that any commissioners are ready to make a motion for appointing?
I don't have any
Okay.
awareness of other appointments at
Okay.
this point.
Yeah, I didn't track any in my notes either, so thank you for verifying. With that, Sarah, I guess I'll ask you to make sure I'm tracking correctly. We've got 6 total appointments to be made related to boards or committees that commissioners sit on. Is that correct?
6, I'd maybe say 7 with the community health improvement
Oh,
plan.
thank you.
that We,
Thank you.
kind of added this year as a part of that process. So I have 7 with that.
Okay. So how about we just start there? That's the CHIP steering committee, correct? The community health improvement plan. And as I understand it, Commissioner Anderson, you have been participating in that so far this year. And do you have a desire to continue that work?
Yes, please.
Any commissioners have any other thoughts about that particular committee?
Are those things we vote on or just kind of assign?
That's a good question. Thank you.
Generally, the
Commissioner Willie.
commissioners vote to make the appointment.
Per
Well, you
appointment?
can do it as a slate if you'd like. I think we've generally, can't remember how
I
we did it
think-
last year.
It's funny, every year I think about this and I'm like, how did we do it? And I guess we could go rewind the tape, but I might propose that we can talk amongst ourselves. And once we've come to consensus about where we're all going to land, we can make a motion to accept all of those appointments collectively. Does that sound all right to commissioners? Okay. So I've got Commissioner Anderson for the CHIP steering committee. Another one that we have is Workforce One, which Commissioner Kelly has been serving on. And there's been some changes over the time, but traditionally it has been the chair. And so I would be happy to step into that role for Workforce One. And then the next one I have on my list is E-Community, which is currently Commissioner Anderson. Go ahead.
Correct. I've been serving on E-Community, and I believe Commissioner Dorsey will be stepping into E-Community.
Okay, we're seeing affirmative head nods just to confirm that Commissioner Dorsey is good with that appointment and switch up. And so next I have the MPO, which is the, or MPO's Transportation Committee. Is that right, Commissioner Dorsey? You can
Yeah, I'll
correct me.
continue that.
Okay, great. So Commissioner Dorsey will stay on that. And then we have KU Innovation Project, which Commissioner Willie is currently sitting on.
I've been on that for a few years. I'd like to continue. I'm certainly open if others are eager to give it a try. Otherwise, I would continue there.
Anybody else chomping at the bit to swap spots with Commissioner Willie there? All right, seeing no takers, glad to have you stay there for the future year. CJCC is the one, Criminal Justice Coordinating Council I have served on for the past few years, and I think it would be really great to have have a new voice and some fresh perspective from the commission there. And I know Commissioner Anderson has expressed some interest, and we've had some conversations about that, so.
Thank you. Yes, I would love to step into that role.
Great. Thank you for that. And then the last one I have on my list is the EDC, Economic Development Corporation, which Commissioner Kelly has been serving on, and
Would like to continue. We've made a lot of progress, and it's actually a voting member now.
Yeah.
We've and have some real good goals. So I'd like to continue that work.
that's great. Yeah, thank you. I think that's great for continuity there, especially since they've just had such significant change in process and bylaws. So. Okay, well, we have agreements about those 7 appointments, so I would entertain a motion to that effect from any commissioner.
I would move to approve the slate of appointments that we just spoke about.
Second.
Moved and double seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, passes 5-0. Thank you so much for that. And then that completes appointments for us. We'll move on to Commissioner Administrator Miscellaneous and start with the memo from Sarah.
Thanks, commissioners. The memo is in your packet. Tomorrow night, we have an event for the public on the 2026 Natural and Cultural Heritage Grant Program. It's an informational meeting, so we wanted to make sure we got that in front of commissioners and let the public know. And the rest of those dates, I think you saw before. Just want to let you know for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Wednesdays in a row, we will have work sessions. So we're starting that calendar work to begin to add work sessions to your 2026 schedule. So we'll be meeting at 4 o'clock on those days to get started. And that is all I have for you, commissioners.
Thank you, Sarah. Commissioners, do you have any miscellaneous items to share for the good of the order? Okay, seeing none, I'm sorry, Commissioner Dorsey. Oh,
Already brought it up to Stewart.
okay, got it. Thank you. All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.